The twilight atmosphere in central Portland held the fragrance of fallen leaves and the distant hint of approaching rain. David Harrison occupied a solitary position at an outdoor table beyond Café Bellacourt, observing the metropolis as it transitioned into its recognized pattern of evening travelers and first-wave diners. At 62, he had come to value these peaceful interludes between appointments when the pressures of managing Harrison Industries appeared to dissolve into the distance. The pasta arbia remained only partially consumed on his dish. His hunger had waned recently, a victim of excessive corporate meals and the persistent sorrow that continued to surprise him without warning. 2 years had passed since Patricia's death, and while the harsh contours of bereavement had mellowed, solitary dining still seemed hollow. David checked his timepiece, a classic Rolex that Patricia had presented to him on their 25th wedding anniversary. The executive meeting wouldn't commence until the following morning, and his hotel suite offered minimal attraction. He had grown comfortable prolonging these modest enjoyments, discovering solace in watching the vitality that moved around him on the active street. A young lady approached the restaurant's exterior dining section, advancing with the cautious movements of someone bearing valuable cargo. She cradled an infant against her body, swaddled in what seemed to be a handcrafted covering. Her golden hair was secured in a modest ponytail, and her garments, though neat, displayed the signs of challenging conditions. David observed as she stopped near the establishment's doorway, her gaze surveying the outdoor patrons with a blend of optimism and uncertainty. Something in her bearing conveyed silent despair, restrained by self-respect. When their glances momentarily connected, he perceived not merely want, but intellect and fortitude. The woman moved toward his table with deliberate paces, halting at a courteous interval. "Pardon me, sir," she spoke, her tone gentle yet distinct. "I apologize for disturbing you, but I observed you weren't completing your dish. Might I receive your remaining food?" The inquiry lingered in the evening atmosphere between them. David had been approached for money numerous times throughout the years, but never quite in this manner. Her request contained no hostility, no coercion, merely honest necessity, expressed plainly. He examined her more carefully. She appeared no older than 25, with eyes that contained the specific weariness that accompanies sleepless evenings with an infant. The child in her embrace shifted slightly, producing small noises that any guardian would identify. "Certainly," David responded, sliding his seat backward. "Please. Would you care to be seated?" The woman paused. "I don't wish to disturb your evening." "You aren't disturbing anything," David answered kindly. "I was merely concluding anyway. Please." She lowered herself cautiously into the chair opposite him, repositioning the infant with experienced skill. The child seemed approximately 4 months in age, with delicate fingers that periodically emerged from the covering to reach toward nothing. "I'm David," he announced, gesturing to the server. "Christina," she responded. "And this is Lily." The server approached, and David requested another serving of the pasta accompanied by bread and tea. "The cuisine here is rather excellent," he mentioned to Christina. "You shouldn't need to accept scraps." Christina's eyes moistened with tears that she rapidly dismissed. "You needn't do that. I didn't intend to." "I understand your intention," David said quietly. "But I would appreciate purchasing you dinner if you'll permit me." While they awaited the food's arrival, Christina revealed fragments of her circumstances. She had arrived in Portland 6 months prior, escaping a violent relationship. She had secured employment at a restaurant, but the schedule was irregular and childcare proved costly. 2 weeks earlier, the restaurant had closed abruptly, removing her source of earnings. "I've been residing at the Women's Refuge," she described, softly swaying Lily. "But there's a queue for the extended programs. I have an employment interview tomorrow at a downtown hotel, a housekeeping role. It isn't significant, but it's a beginning." David listened without interruption, acknowledging the bravery required to reveal such intimate information to an unfamiliar person. He considered his own daughter, Sarah, now 35, and residing in Seattle with her family. What if she had ever encountered such situations? When Christina's meal was delivered, she consumed it gradually, appreciating each portion while maintaining one hand available to soothe Lily. David found himself contemplating the numerous business meals he had attended, the costly dishes that had become routine and insignificant. "What is Lily's age?" he inquired. "4 months next week," Christina replied, her voice brightening as she regarded her daughter. "She has been such a well-behaved infant throughout all of this. Sometimes I believe she comprehends that we're facing this together." David grinned. Infants are more aware than we acknowledge. My daughter was identical when she was small. She appeared to detect when Patricia and I required her patience as we discovered how to be parents. You have a daughter? Sarah. She has 2 children of her own currently. 8 and 10. David retrieved his phone, displaying Christina a recent photograph from his granddaughter's school performance. Time passes so rapidly. One moment you're concerned about teething and restless nights, and suddenly you're witnessing their college graduation. They conversed as the evening grew deeper around them. Christina revealed her aspirations of completing her nursing education eventually, of providing Lily the secure life she merited. David found himself discussing Patricia, regarding the foundation they had established together to assist families in difficulty. She consistently maintained that everyone merits a second opportunity, David said, that situations don't determine character. As the cafe began closing for the evening, David reached a conclusion that seemed both impulsive and destined. He reached into his coat and withdrew a business card, inscribing something on the reverse. Christina, he said, I want you to contact this number tomorrow morning. Request Helen Martinez. She manages our family assistance program. Christina examined the card, then returned to David. I don't comprehend. The Harrison Foundation offers emergency support for families in transition, temporary housing aid, child care vouchers, employment placement services. It's our purpose. Christina studied the card, her hands shaking slightly. But for what reason? You don't know me. David remained silent momentarily, watching as Lily opened her eyes and observed her surroundings with the unfocused amazement of infancy. Because 35 years ago, my wife and I were young and struggling. We possessed grand aspirations but no funds, and Sarah was merely an infant. A stranger assisted us when we needed it most, not only with money, but with opportunity and respect. He stopped, recollecting. That gentleman, Mr. Kowalski, provided me my first genuine position. He recognized something in me that I couldn't perceive in myself then. He demonstrated that success isn't merely about your accomplishments, but about what you enable for others. Christina brushed away tears that had begun flowing openly. I'm uncertain what to express. Promise you'll contact Helen tomorrow. Promise you'll allow us to help you recover your stability. I will, Christina murmured. Thank you. As they prepared to separate, David watched Christina collect her belongings with careful consideration for Lily's comfort. There was something meaningful in observing a young mother's dedication, how love could endure and even thrive in the most difficult circumstances. Christina, he said as she rose to depart. That employment interview tomorrow. What hour? 10 o'clock at the downtown Marriott. David smiled. The general manager there, Tom Bradley, is an old friend. I'll contact him tonight. Not to ensure anything, he added swiftly, but to confirm they recognize what I witnessed tonight. Someone with integrity and resolve. 6 months afterward, David received a handwritten note at his office. Christina had obtained the hotel position and, with the foundation's support, had relocated to a small apartment near Lily's daycare. She was attending evening courses toward her nursing degree and had enclosed a photograph of Lily, now sitting upright and beaming at the camera. Mr. Harrison, the note stated, I reflect on that evening frequently. You demonstrated that requesting assistance isn't disgraceful and that accepting generosity isn't frailty. But primarily, you showed me that there remain people in the world who view others as family, not strangers. I hope someday I can transmit what you provided me. Not merely the practical assistance, but the reminder that we're all linked, that we all have value. David folded the note carefully and positioned it in his desk drawer beside Patricia's photograph. He thought about that evening outside the cafe, how a simple request for scraps had reminded him of something fundamental about human connection and the honor of being able to assist. That evening, he contacted Sarah in Seattle. I've been considering your mother's preferred expression, he told her, about everyone deserving a second opportunity. What regarding it, Dad? I believe she would have supplemented something to that. I think she would have stated that sometimes providing someone else a second chance grants you one too. As David gazed out his office window at the city illumination below, he contemplated how the most significant moments often arrived without announcement. A young mother's bravery in requesting help. An elderly man's recognition of his younger self in another's struggle. The simple wonder of human compassion connecting strangers across the separation of circumstance. Sometimes he understood, what seems to be charity is actually grace, extended and accepted by both parties, reminding us all that we're more similar than different, and that we're never truly isolated as long as we remain receptive to the possibility of connection. The evening atmosphere outside still contained the fragrance of autumn and the promise of rain. But now it also held the memory of a conversation that had transformed two lives, one act of kindness at a time.